You know, I don't particularly like saying I told you so, but in this case, I'm going to say we told you so, because I've done a lot of these EDC cup videos where sometimes you see me making an espresso, a cup of coffee, an Americano, or whatever the case may be. And I'm telling you, SHTF posture. And the one that I talked about the most is when we had that Cybertruck, Tesla Cybertruck was blown up in front of Trump Tower or Trump Hotel in Vegas. And then we had those politically motivated shootings in the New Orleans area. They both happened the same day, January 1st. I made a video that day, or maybe it was the next day, and I talked about the things we need to look for this calendar year and we really need to pay attention to. This all occurred before Trump was in office. One thing I talked about was politician on politician fistfights, because we started seeing a lot of that going on, or even getting bigger when they're talking about guns. We started talking about the health of our political leaders, because Biden looked like he was going to just blow away in the wind. And of course, Trump is older as well. We started talking about things that just happened, unfortunately. But before we get to the assassination from this weekend, we got to look at these facts. According to CNN's Edward Isaac Dover, the last week, and this is all factual, Marines were deployed to an American city. The president called for the governor that is over that city to be arrested. The Speaker of the House called for that governor to be tarred and feathered. A senator was pinned and handcuffed, and 2 state legislators were shot in their homes along with their spouses. We need context for all this, because those are the facts, but there's way more behind it. And I think there's things that you should be doing. I'm definitely doing, and I always do when it comes to this type of stuff. Very, very tragic thing happened over the weekend, and I purposely kind of delayed my thoughts on this story because I wanted to kind of see where people were going with this and see if they had any just crazy, absolute trash takes, which a lot of them are. A lot of conspiracy theories out there, a lot of political stuff out there. I'm going to leave that to those folks. I'm going to tell you what you should be doing in your personal life as these stories continue to develop. So Speaker Emeritus of the Minnesota House, her name was Melissa Hortman, and her husband were assassinated this weekend in Brooklyn Park, Minnesota. The guy who allegedly did this is still on the run. FBI is offering $50,000 for his arrest and eventual conviction. So if you see something, say something. It might be advantageous for you. Another lawmaker was also shot in his house, and his wife, and they seem to be pulled out of surgery, and they seemed like they may actually pull through. It seems like a planned, meticulous operation by this dirtbag, but I think it goes beyond just political figures at this point, and I really want you guys to kind of think about what this could mean in the future, because as we see here, this is not the first time this has happened. But let's get a summary of what happened in this case.
We're here today because an unspeakable tragedy has unfolded in Minnesota. My good friend and colleague, Speaker Melissa Hortman, and her husband Mark were shot and killed early this morning in what appears to be a politically motivated assassination.
Which is so crazy, because political motivation for assassination is not the first time this has happened in this country. But ever since the Kennedy assassinations and a lot of civil unrest and target assassinations of the 60s and 70s, it really has grown to a higher level. And it really started with January 6, 2021. We're seeing more politically motivated violence, killings, stabbings, fist fights, all of that good stuff. And it's so crazy because the Speaker Emeritus, she was a part of what's called the Democratic Farm Labor Party in Minnesota, DFL. First thing I thought of was Down for Life. If you know, you know. But RIP to her, and I hope her spirit rests well. And she was the only Democrat who sided with Republicans to get a budget passed, which in my opinion, sometimes voting for shit that you don't like shows leadership. And she recently did that, and these are her thoughts after taking that vote. And she just did this just the other day, which is so crazy.
Carefully explained why she voted for a bill she actually opposed to strip adult undocumented immigrants from the state's public health insurance program.
Which, kind of confused why. I guess I get it, right? If you're an adult, you are here undocumented or illegal, whichever term you like to use, and you have kids who are American citizens because they were born here, or you have a spouse, or they're born here, right? You got them in healthcare, and I guess we want you to stay healthy, because if you die, they go into the foster system. I just want to know the logic why publicly funded healthcare was available to the undocumented. Somebody just tell the logic to me. I'm not saying that I'm for it or against it. That's the first thing that jumps out in my head of why we were allowing that to happen in the first place. But she voted for that to be stripped away so that Minnesota could have a budget.
I'll continue to have health insurance, so I'm fine. What I worry about is the people who will lose their health insurance. I know that people will be hurt by that vote, and we worked very hard to try to get a budget deal that wouldn't include that provision. And we tried any other way we could to come to a budget agreement with Republicans, and they wouldn't have it. So, I did what leaders do. I stepped up and I got the job done for the people of Minnesota.
Which is a tough thing to have to reconcile with, to know there is something that you don't agree with and you were bold enough to still make that happen, is which something that she did. And we don't know why she lost her life yet. That's the last prominent thing that she talked about before she was assassinated, which I think is unfortunate. So the dirtbag that actually allegedly went up to her house, his name is Vance Boletter, and I'm unsure of his status. Apparently he did graduate in the 90s with a bachelor's degree. Maybe he has a doctoral degree. Maybe he's a doctor. We're still learning about that. He's a 57-year-old dirtbag that lives in Minnesota. And up until this point, a lot of people are making this political because of his appointments and political affiliations in the past. Hey, listen, have at it if that's something that you want to do. He's a 57-year-old. He apparently owns a security company, which affords him to where he was able to buy a vehicle that looks exactly like the police vehicles in that area. And he has the lights on his vehicle. He has the vest. This is a really scary looking mask like that. It looks shitty in these photos, but if someone rings your doorbell, you see the lights outside and you got to ring video doorbell, you might, and they're flashing like, look how he's holding that flashlight. They're shining a flashlight in your Ring video doorbell. He probably didn't even know there was a camera up to the upper left, but they may look like a police officer to you. I could understand how you could gain someone's trust ringing the door and all those things happening. Security cam images show the assassin Vance Boletter knocking on Minnesota lawmaker's door wearing a latex mask and a security guard uniform meant to look like a police officer. You can even see the police license from his security vehicle flashing in the background. And as Nick Sortor, you in this point where you say this is terrifying. And I can agree with that sentiment, because this is what it looks like. So apparently he's a director of security for Paratorian Security Services. That's why he had like a law enforcement lookalike type vehicle. He had a manifesto with him. There had other names. They immediately notified the other people that they were on this hit list. And the governor canceled the No Kings rallies that were scheduled for Saturday, which I think was a smart decision to keep, because he's still out on the run. I mean, this is what his vehicle looks like. And that if this was in the middle of the night, you would be with the brush guard and the lights, and you would be led to believe that this is a police vehicle, especially if you're at night. So apparently he did work all over the world. The validity of that, I don't really know, but I think that the biggest thing to think about is, what does this mean when it comes to your prep and when it comes to things that you should do in your personal life? I think that the politics around this are really clouding what I think you should do when it comes to your personal life and how you talk about what you have in your house prep wise, your political affiliations are. My goal every day is to be here for my family. And so as I see the political tensions rise, I continue to think about that before I open my mouth and have certain conversations with people that could be completely unhinged. Political violence is polarized in the U.S. at its worst since the 1970s. Now, here's the thing. The political violence since the January 6th attack, there are a lot of cases. A lot of them are men, a lot of car ramming incidents, a lot of mass shootings, a lot of stabbings, fistfights, dueling groups at public demonstrations and events. I talk to you guys all the time about, unless you just really feel it deep in your soul to be at these events, I would still avoid them as much as possible. I don't know if you guys remember in 2022, a man shoots and kills his neighbor because he thought he was a Democrat. Like, that's literally the overall reason why he did it. A 43-year-old man was fatally shot over his perceived political affiliation, and his Ohio family said his 26-year-old neighbor is now facing a charge of murder, according to court documentation. What about that same year, the Buffalo mass shooting, where 10 were dead, 13 people were shot in a supermarket in May of that year. And that was mainly because of politics. And the guy that did it was, he wanted to start a race war. Fast forward, that same guy who shot his neighbor, they eventually found out that he was not fit for trial because I guess he had a couple of screws loose. Now 27, he did that in 2022, and his lawyers argue that he's now on his meds, but he's still not fit for trial. And eventually he did get ordered to go to a mental hospital, which he probably will never get out of for the rest of his life. Political assassination targetings, I think, are trickling down from just the high level of politics and politicians to people who literally could be a part of your life. We saw the stuff with Gabby Gifford. We saw everything with President Trump trying to be assassinated twice during the 2024 campaign. Fast forward, we're seeing stuff that are happening in neighborhoods. We're seeing two men who got into a fist fight and had fatally killed one another over arguing over Trump's big business acumen. This stuff, here's the first thing I would recommend you do. What goes in your house stays in your house as this climate continues to grow. I don't talk politics with my neighbors. I have one neighbor, he'll come over every now and again and drink Jack Daniels, or he'll drink sweet tea with, actually he likes unsweet tea. I drink sweet tea. He'll come over here and drink tea or Jack Daniels. We don't talk politics. I know he's super Trumpy. He doesn't know what I am, right? I just know it. I know because of the stuff he keeps on his house and the stuff he keeps on his vehicles. We don't talk about that stuff. We talk vehicles. We talk kids. We talk what's going on in our high school and the shit that's pissing us off. We talk property taxes, etc. I have another neighbor, super Democratic-y. Okay, one's an OBGYN. I have another one that's a retired CPA. They keep the signs in their front yard. They don't know what I am. All right. The point being is, it just takes one person who is connected to you, whether you're in an apartment, you're in a rural area where your neighbor's 8 miles away, you're in between like somebody like me where there's 135 houses in my neighborhood. I don't talk that type of stuff because people, for some reason, are starting to wear their politics like a coat of armor, like they're proud of it, like it's a badge, like it's something they want everyone to see. And as we continue this broader thing of politics, our politicians, I believe, are fostering that. They're flaming it. A lot of times they don't try to tamp it down. They don't try to control or condemn when any of these situations happen. And we start seeing these situations approach all of the time. Now, we see a lot of this politics at the highest level. Of course, John Oliver is poking fun at the recent feud between Musk and Trump. And he's called these two are the real housewives. But what I'm saying, I'm pointing this stuff out, is that for some reason people decide to put on the jersey of this stuff and they really wear it and they really own it. And if you say something that they absolutely don't like, you're putting yourself up as a target. Now, community dynamics suffer from reduced social cohesion, misinformation, and diminished external aid, isolating families. You can isolate yourself in your own neighborhood simply because you do not agree with your neighbor's politics. And isolation may not necessarily lead to something big, just like these two, somebody actually taking someone out with a handgun or something like that. But being isolated in your neighborhood is something that you don't necessarily want as well. Political assassinations can trigger significant societal instability during an SHTF moment. If there is a SHTF moment, such as a natural disaster, some type of civil unrest, anything similar to that, you want to be able to depend on your neighbors in almost any event. So we had very big ice storms in the DFW Metroplex quite a bit in the last few years. Multiple times in the last few years, we've had ice storms which shut our city down. You see, this is barely anything. I mean, you see my little wagon here is like, 2 inches of snow or something like that. Shut the whole city down. But this has happened multiple times. And you know what I do during those significant moments, if we're going to be shut down for multiple days? I end up trading with my neighbors. I barter with my neighbors. If I have cigarettes, if I need diapers, if I have whatever. Yes, we're going out there. We're having fun. We're enjoying ourselves. We're doing stuff like this. We can makeshift sleds out of clothes baskets because we live in Texas. But we depend on our neighbors to know that we have that type of support when this stuff is going on, and we can have a good time. The thing is that every single year since 2021, we've always wondered, is it going to be another year when I'm sitting out here and I'm scraping my truck off and I'm having to do another trade or something like that with neighbors. This was in 2022. So I just showed you 24, 25. In 2022, we had ice storms. 22 was a lot of bartering with neighbors to get stuff because I needed a lot of crap, specifically firewood. But if I had those conversations with my neighbors when it came to politics, there could have been a slight thing of isolation because I don't want to go talk to one of them. Like one of my neighbors was a complete dick. No one helped him out. No one shoveled his driveway. He drove a Camaro, which was rear wheel drive. He couldn't go anywhere. He only had a golf cart. Walmart was closed. We were like, oh, well, the only reason people helped him out is because he had an 8-month-old. I still didn't fucking want to help him out because he was just such a big dick. And that was all because of his politics. So the point is, I still would caution you to think about what it could mean during an SHTF moment if you're thinking about talking overly about politics, not just the most dramatic thing that could happen, which happened to these lawmakers this weekend. I'm thinking about stuff before that, the erosion of trust, power vacuums from people that are being taken out, other people coming to power. So whatever we can do to just avoid that, I think is very, very important. I'm going to say this. A lot of people don't agree with it. I believe in the Second Amendment, because it could get to that situation where it is very, very dicey. If you believe in it, get yourself something to protect yourself, train with it by going to a range, learn how to use it safely, all of that good stuff. There could be shortages of that stuff in the future. Somebody asked me on a YouTube comment the other day, if you had $500, would you use, or $300, would you use it to buy a knife or $300 worth of ammo? Now, for my situation where I am currently in my life, I would probably use it $300 to buy ammo because I get knives sent to me for free. But if I wasn't in that situation as a YouTuber who gets free crap, I would probably buy a knife because once the ammo runs out, you can sharpen a knife and continue to use it. So that's the biggest thing I wanted to take away from this. A lot of people are taking away from this is ultimately they want to go directly into the politics of this. They want to go into, is this was this a lefty type of situation? They saw all the stuff when it came to, he had a bunch of no kings flyers and he wanted them to, I guess, to be canceled or something like that. But he was also appointed by the Democratic governor of the state. And it was just like this real dicey situation where I couldn't necessarily navigate. I can't figure out what this guy is. And if you can't figure out what this guy is, don't try to dissect and put yourself out there for your neighbors or people around you, because you never know what's really going on in people's minds. Last example I have, hanging out with some of our buddies. We're still in the city that we live in. We're about 4 miles away from our house. We're in the backyard. We're throwing back shots. We're smoking a hookah. I'm smoking a cigar. It's like 2:30 in the morning. Everybody at the event that happened to be at the event is just kind of feeling good, feeling kind of faded. And a neighbor walks up on us 2:30 in the morning, right? Now, amongst this group of people, a lot of people have knives, guns, and flashlights on them. I mean, you're hanging out with Marine X. Guy walks up on him. He gets strobed in the face. I put my hand on my waistband. We don't know who this dude is. He was just a little drunk. He wanted to have some shots. He thought somebody over here in our group may have had some weed. We didn't. But the point being is, we know who the hell he was. It took one of us in the group to say, hey, that's my neighbor. Y'all chill out. But that's because he had trust with him. We don't know anything about the dude. And that's how it should be for you. Also, don't walk up on a group of like 9 men at 2:30 in the morning through an alley. That's just not a good idea. But what do you think, guys? Are you all about talking about your politics? Are you, do you think that this is just some radical guy and it's not going to happen and you're not concerned about it? Or are you the complete opposite side, kind of like me, which is like what goes on in my house stays in my house. If this is your first time stopping by, hit the subscribe button. I would love to have you a part of the battalion. If this is not your first time stopping by, well, thank you once again for watching me run my grape. I guess I finished my stick because I just finished cutting the grass. For everyone else, we'll speak soon.